Okay, we're going to call to order the town council meeting for Kensington for Wednesday, May 7th. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item on the agenda is a moment of silence. It's an opportunity to bring anyone up that we would like to think about.
Thinking about the victims of the fires in California.
I'll mention it. He's technically supposed to go up here, but I think we should. So thank you. We'd like to remember the people who have been hurt in the fires in California. I'll bring up on a happy note. My daughter was promoted to Chief Petty Officer in the Coast Guard. So we're going down in July for her ceremony. Pinning. So excited about that. Anybody else? Okay, we could bow our heads for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're going to start with the mayor and town council. Next on the agenda, the Joseph Park referendum question. Council, you've received the question, and we just need to make a motion and vote on the approval tonight of the language. Any discussion? Sorry?
Let's come back. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Completely messed up. We can come back.
I think it's okay. So Alicia actually came up earlier to me to ask a question. I think it's actually worth considering whether we put one more line in here about what the vote was for town council, so people know that it's coming on here because it was
the referendum.
Yeah, the referendum is it says it was adopted.
Well, they were required to receive 362 votes. I believe they counted 367. There was like 79 votes or 79 signatures that were flagged, not necessarily because they weren't good signatures, but they either didn't show up on the voter list, which was a year old, so we didn't have the new one yet, or they just couldn't read it. So they made the amount. They made the 360.
No, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. What the vote was here on council for
I see.
Joseph Park sale.
Does it have a bearing?
I think it makes provides information to the fact that it was contested.
Oh no, I only asked because I was thinking about that in my mind. Even if it were 4-0, they could have moved forward with the referendum process. The referendum process that puts it on the ballot.
Yeah, but I mean, you could make a case that none of that rest of information is valid. So why did Sue Ellen choose to include some but not other information? I think it's worth saying that it was a contested vote.
The reason the rest of the wording is there is because that's taken directly out of the ordinance itself. I didn't use any language that wasn't descriptive of what's there, because that's your job in terms of putting it on a ballot, is to make it clear what people are voting for or against. And I don't know that the proponents would feel differently if the vote had been 4-0. Because that gives a different flavor to it. It really doesn't matter. It was adopted.
Okay.
And so showing that some of the council members were for or against it, or all of them for it, or, you know,
And it doesn't really tell you why.
no, but the point I'm making is that the descriptors that are there now are what the bill was intended to do, which is what needs to be on the ballot. How many people were for or against it in terms of the vote? You would not be, like I said, you wouldn't be getting this request if it was 4-0
Right.
adoption.
And I guess the case is could be made that you could get that information from other sources.
Absolutely.
If you want to, yeah.
But the reason it wouldn't be asked if it was 4-0, and it's being asked now because it's split, is to put some pressure one way or the other in terms of how the voter sees it.
Right, but the language, like you're saying, because we added the amendment of the 1-to-1 offset, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
and
in there.
that was the amended part.
Yeah,
Okay.
all
I
of
forgot
that
about
comes
that.
directly from the ordinance. I did not deviate at
Makes
all
sense. Okay.
from that. So that's what's there, and that's what you're explaining to people is this is what the ordinance would do, and you're for it or against it.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Connor, you or Darren have anything?
No.
Anybody from the audience? And if you do, you need to go up to the podium, just give your name and your street.
Hi, my name is Alicia Schechter. I live on Wheatley Street. I do believe that putting the vote into the referendum provides necessary information to people who are voting on that referendum at the election. I have other things I could say, but I don't want to hold up the meeting. I'm just saying that I think you're withholding something important.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia. Anybody else want to comment? Oh, Joe?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councilmember Engel. I think that vote deserves to be in this ballot question, and it could simply be inserted in the first line of the referendum question, right after the word "was," the third word in the ballot question. An ordinance was, comma, by a 3-2 vote, comma, adopted by the mayor and town council, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't need to be very extensive, but I think that bit of information is very important, and it does tell the people in the town of Kensington that this is an important issue and that the town council split on it. So I endorse Councilmember Engel's comments here, and I think it could be easily done as I just outlined. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question up there? Okay. Let's see any. Okay. Jody, did you have a question? You're waving your hand, but
Alex, do you want to admit?
No, I'm not waiting.
I mean, whether they could have gotten the signatures whether the vote was 4-0 or 5-0 or whatever. So I don't think it really makes a difference on how it was voted by the council. I just don't see where it makes a difference.
okay, thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment?
Yeah, I do, Mayor Furman. I think this enhances the transparency of this ballot question, and I think it got on the ballot through a demonstration of grassroots democracy, and I think that that this modest addition that I proposed would have the effect of making this ballot question even more transparent. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just, I guess, take the view that, like, sometimes we're lucky that people read our journal, and a couple words isn't going to make a difference. I have complete faith that by the time people come into the election in June, they're going to know more than nobody's going to be looking at this ballot question and know nothing about the issue, because we've been talking about it on the listserv. We put a bunch of journal articles in. I don't think saying adding was adopted by 3-2 vote is going to be material. I'm not asking that we add 20% of the registered voters of this town having signed a petition, this gets put on the ballot, because that might suggest the support for is only 20%. I mean, I don't think we should be invested in this decision. I'm willing to take the language that the attorney recommended and trust that people will know the merits of the issue before they vote on it.
Well, my guess is that when people signed the referendum, they hadn't read the ordinance either. So,
Well, they were supposed to be provided it during the.
We had it with us every time.
yeah, but I don't think people read it.
Right.
So, not from what I saw.
No, and I hope they do, because
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, it's
I think
important. It's
there are
disappointing,
merits.
but,
Yeah.
Okay, Connor?
I mean, I share Darren's view. I get Joe's point that it adds a layer of transparency. I also wonder then, where do you draw the line? There's more that we could push into this of, why did people vote the way they voted? What were their thoughts? But then you've got a 15-page ballot referendum. My hope, like Darren said, if a couple of words, I don't think makes any substantial difference. I hope is that when people get in there, regardless of the vote, how the vote came out, was that they understand the merits of why the council voted, what their feelings were towards it, what the town is proposing to do with the proceeds to increase the square footage of parkland across the town, to help offset costs for public works building, that they see the net positives of it. So I'm ready to just vote on the language.
Okay, Anne is online. Anne, I don't know if you're up. Did you want to say anything?
I gather from the discussion that there was some sort of amended language that was being offered.
Yeah, I made the suggestion that we put the vote on what was 3-2 in the ordinance language for transparency reasons. And then Sue Ellen made the point that it was just taken directly from the ordinance itself, all of the language. So adding anything now would possibly skew it in one direction or other. And I still feel it would improve transparency, but I do understand the argument that it's, where do you stop then if you add more?
Right. I mean, knowing that this was the ordinance as was introduced and discussed, I don't think we need to add language. I think we need to refer people to the full record.
Okay,
Because there's just so much information, and it would be hard to, keep amending the ballot question.
right.
Yeah, I support that.
Okay. All right. Does somebody like to make a motion? They're calling in the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the ballot question as presented by the town attorney.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we don't need to add, it was approved 4-0.
I don't know, we could debate that.
Yeah, we could do that. All right. So let's go back to the meeting minutes. Sorry, I missed that. I saw 2 people comment on the meeting minutes and they had no edits. So I am prepared to take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from the April 9th town council meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and, I don't know, Matt or Sue Ellen, you want to take over the judgment?
I will defer to town attorney first.
Okay.
I'm just going to generally describe what's happened. The town is the defendant now in a case that's been filed by the Bakers Union at 10401 Connecticut Avenue. It's for a declaratory judgment, and that's when a party goes to the court and says that there's a dispute between 2 parties, and they're asking the court to resolve that dispute. It is not a claim for money. And the Bakers Union is seeking to overturn a covenant that was signed years ago with the prior owners of the property. So that was just recently served, and the town will be answering that. And then as things play out, it'll just be handled as appropriate. And the attorneys will be in consultation with town council and the mayor as to what the best steps are to take.
So just a little background, the Bakers Union is the red brick building over here, and they want to sell it. So, and there's a covenant, the covenant is that it could only be an office building. So they're asking that the covenant be dropped. And they're also, what was my other thing that I was going to do? We have insurance, so that will cover our legal expenses. Very important that we have hopefully this will just be in front of the judge and we can clear this up pretty quickly. So, that's it. Any questions in the audience? Good.
Hi, my name is Alicia Schechter, and I still live on Wheatley Street. And I have a question. When I was reading some of the materials about this, it mentioned about the requirements of access.
Yes.
And concerns about access not being through Connecticut Avenue. So it just makes me wonder, with the new Kensington crossing at the corner of Pliers Mill in Connecticut, what would happen with access, and what's the plan for access and parking for that?
The access of parking is you can enter the building through Connecticut. I don't think it's an exit. I think it's only one.
Right in.
Is it a right in, right out? Okay.
Right in, right out.
So and then they actually are going to through the parking lot of the property next door, which is a joint ownership. So they're allowing an easement. So you would actually come out on Metropolitan Avenue to either turn left or to turn right.
Okay. So that new building can be entered from Connecticut Avenue.
Yes, correct.
But the existing one can't.
I mean, that's the way it was written back
Okay.
in the 70s, early 70s when that was built.
Okay.
And you may not
Thank you.
realize this,
Yeah.
but there are three
Yes.
pieces of property.
Yes.
Imagine three rectangles. We own the
The
one
front.
along Connecticut Avenue.
Yes.
And so we allow them a sidewalk and a sign, but not a road.
They're not, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good information. Thank you.
And of course, we own Reinhardt Park. So they're really what they're selling is the center property. Okay. All right. Councilmember Albernas is here. We have a lot of our friends and residents here that are anxious to, we're just done. Unless anybody has any questions on the Bakers Union, further questions, council? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go into number 2. Go ahead. You have the floor. Yeah, just go up here, just give your name and your street.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. I am a neighbor. My name is Gabe Albernas. I'm one of your at-large members of the council. And I live on Summit Avenue on the other side of Connecticut, but I'm a big fan of Carmen's Italian Ice and the new taco place that has come up, which has been fabulous. But it's a privilege to be here with all of you tonight. Just want to do a couple of things here to answer any questions that you guys may have. The council is in the midst of, this is our tax season if we were accountants, because we are going through the budget deliberation process. And so we have a lot on our plate. And as you all probably saw, the county executive has proposed a budget that includes the possibility of an income tax increase, which is something that we are deliberating over. Have gotten a lot of free job advice from a number of different residents and constituents. And so we are in the midst of going through some very difficult decision-making, and our public school system has come in with an understandably very large request that we are trying to wrestle with and reconcile with everything else before us. So on the calendar, and obviously will impact the town and all of our respective municipalities, but We will be working on taking a straw vote by next Thursday, and we will finish our committee work by Friday, and we'll see where we land. But we did receive an update from our county's finance office, and it is clear that the numbers that they projected as revenue from a possible income tax increase are just a guess because of so many federal employees that have lost their jobs. And so that is very much a moving target. So that is the big news from the council. And I don't know, Tracy, how you want me to talk about other issues.
Well, we wanted to, I know you're very involved with the cannabis issue,
Yeah.
which is why a lot of people are here today, and they're concerned about cannabis stores being allowed to open next to residential property
Sure.
that abuts the property. So we're hoping you could give some enlightenment on the legislative opportunities that there might be for the county council.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've learned a lot about this issue. And this, of course, was passed by state referendum. And it is a very highly regulated industry in our state. And I have had the opportunity to visit a couple of dispensaries myself and have been very impressed with their respective operations, but understand that it is causing concern among different members of the community who may have felt differently about this issue. And when the state legislature passed this particular bill, they did provide a mechanism for local jurisdictions to pass a zone text amendment to establish our own set criteria for where exactly these facilities can and can't be. And one of the areas that we're looking at is that, consistent with our liquor stores, that they not be within 100 feet of residential neighborhoods. And so we are exploring that legislation now, and we're working on drafting it. Our legislative process is a public process, and so people will have the opportunity to weigh in and provide public testimony to let us know how they feel about these zone text amendments. We think, until July 1st to be able to enact something at the local level. Our executive branch is working with the state cannabis folks on some broader issues. But that is what we're looking at doing at the local level, is passing legislation or introducing legislation that, again, would require the restriction within 100 feet, which was consistent with the development of our liquor stores, which are managed by the county, of course. So that is what we're hoping to introduce by next week, and receive some feedback on at that point.
So this would not affect restaurants that sell alcohol, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I know that the cannabis store that is currently has a state license, but they don't have the county license yet. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
But there's some back and forth between our county attorney and the Cannabis Association, because this is, the bill hasn't been enacted for very long.
Right.
And so it's sort of playing itself out in different ways, and this is one of them. So we're sort of learning as we go here. I do want to give a lot of credit to Delegate Jared Solomon, who's been very helpful in just sort of educating me about what happened in Annapolis. I also have to say that I chair the county's Health and Human Services Committee, and going into this legislation, I had my own concerns, particularly about other jurisdictions that, and the state of Maryland has really learned from the rollout of this in other states across the country, and did their best to take into account in the enactment of the legislation to make it more reasonable and allow for us to be able to absorb this as a community. But it is still relatively new, and we will see exactly where this takes us. But I have spoken to Councilmember Stewart, who of course represents our district and is serving as our council president this year. I give a lot of credit to her as well. She's been very helpful in addressing this particular issue. And I've been keeping my colleagues abreast of where we are with all of this as well. We want to be reasonable, but we also want to take into account some of the concerns that have been raised by residents And of course, we want to try to find a sweet spot.
Is there one of our residents had found two churches that were in an office building less than 300 feet from the proposed cannabis store. And for some reason, the county is not accepting them as places of worship. Is that correct?
So as of right now, and I'm going to get an update on this tomorrow, there's some question about whose jurisdiction that falls under. The State Cannabis Association feels that it's the county, and the county feels that it's the State Cannabis Association. So there's some finger pointing going on right now that we're working through. And again, this is all relatively new. It's being rolled out in real time. And so we are working on resolving that question.
Okay. I know Councilmember Crimmins did a little research himself today. And do you want to say how you found out about one of these?
I mean, one of the
places of worship?
Places of worship is a broad catch-all term. But it also then goes to where you're located in, quote, traditional structures, a church, synagogue, mosque, temple, non-traditional, like a commercial office building. Places of worship can also be in a private residential home. So then, to your point, council member, not only whose jurisdiction, but our question is, what is the process of how they're going to do due diligence on the 500 feet, and what is the data they're going to use? So in researching this, it looks like the county keeps a list of what they determine are places of worship. It's within the Montgomery County data set. There's currently 605 places of worship. But it looks like those are places that have a assembly permit. But if you have a congregation or membership or attendance under 50, you don't require that type of permit. You can have a business use permit, which it looks like are not being tracked. And so how are they to find? This is very much a place of worship. It is in a non-traditional space. I talked to the pastor today. Their membership is about 30. So they have a business use license. And I don't think for that reason, it wound up on anybody's radar that they are a place of worship. And it leads to the bigger question of not only whose jurisdiction, but what is the process, right? What is the fair and reasonableness to say, we did our due diligence, we looked at 500 feet, here's what we looked at for a primary school, a secondary school, a childcare, because that's another subcategory, right? If you have in-house childcare versus, a kinder care, like how are we determining where these things are located? It took our resident, I don't know, an hour and a half to find two churches that somehow neither the state nor the county either found, or nobody may have looked because they thought the others were looking, which then leads to the ultimate question. How do you issue it? This is the state, but how did the state issue a license signing off that there was none of these protected areas within the 500 feet, but nobody checked if there were any of these areas within 500 feet?
I mean, I got the impression they just did a Google search, a Google Earth search. That was it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what criteria they use, but it's clear there's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
And as is often the case with legislation like this, not every scenario is necessarily thought through. And if the legislature has to go back and, just as we do on the council, we enact laws and legislation that we have to revisit and amend in different ways to address circumstances we couldn't have foreseen when we wrote the legislation in the first place. But that'll be up to our friends in Annapolis to decide whether or not they want to pursue that. But we are going to exhibit, again, the provision within the law that allows local jurisdictions to provide the types of restrictions that we're going to provide within reason. So that's that is being drafted now, and we're hoping to have that drop pretty soon.
Okay, go ahead.
Council member, quick question. Thank you for the background. Do you have a sense, I know it's really new, fresh, but do you have a sense of what the support is on the council for that provision, adding drafting that piece of legislation that would disallow within 100 feet of a residence? And I'll relate to that, is it the boundary line of the residence? Is it just the border? Just curious.
It's both good questions. I'm gonna have an answer for you by noon tomorrow. Because it's being drafted, but I don't know exactly where folks stand right now, but one of my first pieces of legislation that I enacted on the council was a zone text amendment to address vaping shops in our community, which started to pop up and are not nearly as regulated as our cannabis dispensaries. In fact, they're not regulated. And so we did put provisions that required that they not be within a certain distance of schools or parks. And that did pass unanimously on the council, but that was the previous council. But again, because there's parallels generally with our liquor store policies, then that's one of the areas of consistency that we're going to be focusing on as a policy matter.
Okay, thank you. And then if it passes, would this specific case apply?
Likely not.
Okay.
Because laws like this cannot be retroactive.
Okay. Even if it's not decided and a permit was not granted, it's still delayed.
That I'm not sure of.
Okay.
But that we're not allowed to make zone text amendments retroactive.
Okay.
So, and I understand that portion of it. So the question is, can the churches, the presence of the churches, that is a sensitive area, can be more pressure be put on DPS to recognize them as sensitive areas?
So,
and how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I know that, well, first, he's an amazing guy and I love him. He's an assistant CEO. Dr. Earl Stoddard.
Yeah, very great guy, really good guy.
As they say in business, he's on the second floor. That's the floor that the county executive's on.
Yeah.
So Dr. Stoddard is running point for the administration on this issue. And, coordinating with all of the respective county agencies, permitting services being the primary one. So he would be in a better position to be able to respond to that question. But I know that he is working on this and trying to resolve this and seeing, where we go from here. But from my perspective, what I'm focusing on is the zone text map.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, and I appreciate
We'll
that.
get to the audience. We will.
I would certainly hope that would move forward. But I guess maybe what I'm hoping for is your, persuasive voice as well, because here you have a law that says not within 500 feet. And you, like you said, we have finger pointing, county saying it's not our law, state possibly saying it's not their law. It's somebody's law.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't just ignore it because it's hard. And I think that waiting and I have a hard time thinking the state will want to be put in the position of saying what is a real church and what isn't. And so, if they approve this permit, they're basically saying these two are not real churches. And it just seems like that's a really difficult position to
So the state
articulate.
agency that resolves matters like this is the Attorney General's office. They I know have been plugged in. And so there will be questions raised there about resolving that specific issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open up to the public. You'll need to come forward. Gabe, you probably need to just stand by. I mean, just because I'm sure some of the questions will be directed to you.
Sure.
So just go ahead one at a time and just give your name and your street.
Hi, Matt Rand, Frederick Avenue. I guess my question is to the town council. Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate everything you're doing. Is there anything the town can do to also potentially pass an ordinance saying, hey, there's a law out there. What about actually in the town itself?
Well, this is why we have our town attorney, so we're going to let her answer that question.
The council member is very clear about this is new, but how I view this is that the county has the power over zoning, except in some very narrow bands of authority. And they're approaching this as a zoning matter also by adopting the ZTA. And for zoning matters, unless the state separately gives the municipalities the ability to legislate in the area, the town doesn't have that. So that's why they can't, at this point, say what kinds of uses can be in the town and what types can't. That's a county level and a state level, but that hasn't been given to the town. At least in Montgomery and Prince George's counties, except for some municipalities have that, but have zoning power, but the town does not. And so that's how I've been looking at this from the legal side of it, is that this is a zoning issue, it's a use issue, and the county would have to say so on that rather than the town. And I don't know if there's any difference of opinion about that at the county level.
Yeah. So not a lawyer, don't play one on TV, but I think what you said is correct.
Yeah.
Wait, you have to go up front, sorry, I know.
I'm the person who came with it from the last.
I know, I'm sorry. So just name and street.
My name's Leslie Westbrook and I live on Farragut Avenue and my whole backyard borders this dispensary. So I have a very vested interest in how this is decided. And if I'm understanding you correctly, what you pass by the 31st will have nothing to do with what's happening now. And the town has said they don't have the responsibility or authority to do it either. So are you saying that there is a vacuum there in the time frame in which anything goes because nobody is going to make sure the regulations are in fact enforced?
I have to go up there to respond.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Very reasonable
Just
question.
sit right there and then you can jump up if you need to.
Very reasonable question. I guess I'll try to answer in two ways. One, with regards to this specific application for this specific location, sadly, depending on your perspective, there's not much we can do from a council perspective because the zone text amendment will be prospective. Now, I don't know, to be candid with you, how many other licenses or how many other permits are being discussed at this moment. So I don't know in this time frame how many more would be able to go through. But I think once we have, pending legislation, I would hope that that would be taken into account as discussions are being had at the state level over whether or not to issue licenses. But I'm not familiar with their process and I don't know how it works. But that's sort of where we are right now. And this issue was brought to my attention just a month ago. And so we are, working through this and have had great conversations with Matt, some of the members of the community. And I've had the opportunity to meet with cannabis dispensaries owners as well, who have, credible businesses. And again, I've had the opportunity to visit a couple of them in other parts of the county. And I've been impressed with their operation. But I think that, just my opinion, when the state enacted this legislation and they provided some of these provisions, I think that there was at least an intent, if you read the law, to not have them necessarily be within residential neighborhoods. And so, and again, that is the county's authority, and we are going to try to enact legislation, and we'll see where my colleagues land. I'm not sure. I do have a few co-sponsors who have expressed interest in signing on to the legislation. And as part of the legislative process, I will discuss this with my colleagues and, it'll go through the legislative process.
Thank you. Did you want to follow up or anything? Go ahead.
Yeah,
You
sorry.
can.
Let me bring it.
You can.
There's the camera.
Yeah,
Camera.
yeah.
Yeah,
I volunteer for a minute. First of all, I really appreciate you coming tonight. You're a real person now rather than just a name on all the stuff that comes through my computer. And so I appreciate it. And I appreciate how articulate you are and very open about what's going on and what the possibilities are. But I'm kind of stunned because what I'm hearing is that because anything that you all do enact won't apply to anything until after July 31st, I'm in a hole. I'm in a hole. And I too only learned about this when the council did, which was after it was in the newspaper. So you kind of get the feeling that they were trying to slip it in with the idea that they knew people were not going to like this. Now, I don't know whether that gets your ire up, but it sure bothers me. I like people to be honest, direct, open, transparent, and I don't feel like this has been the case at all with regard to this dispensary. At all. And I don't even know who to say it to anymore. You're the first real person who's at least been able to tell me someone is ultimately going to take some responsibility for the endorsement, for the actual enforcement of the regulations that y'all are struggling with. They're meaningless until you have the ability to actually make sure they're followed.
Yeah.
And to say to me, as I was told last month, it's coming. Well, I'm not opposed to it coming. I think it's great. It's been a long time in coming. However, I don't want it, the boundary of my backyard to be the boundary of their backyard.
Yeah.
Please, if there's some way I can write someone, or you could tell me, send me a memo, something, so that I don't feel so paralyzed with regard to this. It's taken up a lot of time this week in particular. And I do want to say one more thing with regard to money. I have the feeling that if this was not a marijuana dispensary, but an ice cream store, the taxes that would be collected would be less for the money they take in. And so I think that is sort of a subterranean issue here with regard to our town. And I don't want to, make people feel hurt by that. I'm just saying I've been around a long time, and I know how money is usually part of the issue of any big decision. So please help us out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Somebody else want to say a few words? Go ahead. Yeah, come to the podium, say your name and your street.
Hi, everybody. My name's Christina Betancourt Johnson, and I am on Prospect Street. I actually wanted to just make a comment. I think your concerns are really valid, and I can understand where you're coming from. The line is not in my backyard. I want to provide some context, though, for what I'm also going to say. So I'm the first African-American and Latina in America to have what's called a vertically integrated license set, which means I can cultivate, I can do extraction, I can also distribute. I'm a multi-state operator, which means I can operate in more than one state and have dispensary licenses in more than one state. I sit on the board of the United States Cannabis Council. In addition to the National Hispanic Cannabis Council, I lobby at the federal level, the state and the local level, served the community for years. I sat on several boards in Montgomery County, and have been involved with cannabis for like the last 7 years. I'm also one of Wes's or Governor Moore's appointee to the oversight committee of medical and adult use cannabis in the state of Maryland. So I've got some history with the industry. Cannabis has been legalized in Maryland for more than a decade for medical use. The zoning laws, more or less 85%, have been pretty consistent for the last decade. Not a whole lot of new stuff there. Adult use was enacted through the Cannabis Reform Act fairly 2 years ago, so fairly new. And then House Bill 805 addressed adding houses of worship in as a sensitive location, in addition to schools and a few other spots that I think you spoke to earlier. The 500-foot setback is not in Comar, but it is in statute. And the MCA, which is the Maryland Cannabis Administration, is who regulates cannabis and who issues licenses to those who have applied for them in the state of Maryland through pretty arduous processes. If in fact we wanted to, as a council or community, understand how the state evaluates who should be licensed and therefore issued a yes, go ahead, you can go to where you're going, it's through the MCA. And so OAG absolutely has heard and addressed several cannabis issues, but the MCA is where you would actually want to start with, like, just understanding the process. or Colmar or the regs. And really the only zoning change has been enacted in 2024, I think House Bill 805, which was that addition. So, I mean, I want to say, like, there have been a lot of things that have happened in the last decade with regards to cannabis and what's permissible, what's not. And there are people, I think, readily available to discuss it. On the House side, we have some very strong leaders. Senate side, really strong leaders. They're vocal. There are two offices in particular, probably. Antonio Hayes on the Senate side, Senate Finance regulates. And then on the House side, it's C.T. Wilson. So I just wanted to put that out there so that we're really clear about avenues. And for the last 5 years, there have been ongoing conversations that have been very public, have been in the newspaper consistently, nothing new about it, where we have discussed with local jurisdictions through MACO how counties get involved in the legislative process, how they can affect change, what they can and can't do with regards to zoning, because they have the power of zoning sort of right within, no pun intended, their backyard. So that's all I kind of wanted to say there.
Christina, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
With all this, mine goes back to what I said earlier. Do you have any understanding of what the process is and who is in charge of reviewing the 500-foot from these protected areas?
I do.
Can you answer it?
Yeah, were you asking me, you asked me, did I have insight? Were you asking me to know about the process?
Yeah, because I will just say I've made phone calls and I'm getting it's the county and the county saying it's the state.
Yes, the state.
And
it's the state. The Maryland Cannabis Administration, which was created in 2023 through legislation, it was previously the MMCC, is responsible for doing the official licensing of a business. That license comes only upon them getting sort of place carded approved for their locations and then going through years in some people's cases of fights at the local level about where they can go, where they can't go, all of these little tiny details, and then also getting their place operational. And so the final license then comes after final review and approval from the MCA. And they are the ones that at the beginning and at the end of the process say, yes, you're outside of that 500-foot setback. So they are the ones that do the regulatory enforcement for the law that is in statute, obviously, for the statute that is enacted by our General Assembly.
Do you know what records do they check for, like, childcare and for places of worship specifically?
So what I will say is that is not my area of expertise, but when I went through that process, they do have lists, and my understanding is it is based on state registrations. So whatever that means, I am not the expert there, but there is a new director that was just not voted in. They were just appointed in by the General Assembly in this past legislative session. Her name is Tabitha Robinson, and she would be the one that can help you answer that question with some more precision. Not my area of expertise.
As a follow-up to what Connor was saying, so are you getting the back and forth saying it's the county, it's the state, because we're somewhere in the middle of that process right now with this one? They've approved it provisionally, then they have to do the final approval, but they're waiting for the DPS to issue the permits, and they won't because they don't want to make that decision. So we're kind of stuck in the middle. Is that where we are right now?
So my understanding, based on what I've heard and what I've read, is that there are two different processes that have to occur. You have to be given approval by the state regulatory agency for your business use, for your business location, and ensuring that you meet all the statutory requirements as well as the regulatory requirements for your use in cannabis. That's on the left-hand side of this mic. On the right-hand side of the mic is that you have to also meet all of the other requirements that any other business has to meet inside of a jurisdiction. So if you've got to get a permit for fire, for whatever you got to get your permits for, you'd have to also secure those from the appropriate agency or department. In Montgomery County, that is through Montgomery County. Absolutely, through permitting services. So the county does have to, they are not responsible for the 500-foot setback. They're responsible for their own rules. So if in the county there are no rules, then they're required to issue the permit, and they can get sued for that if they don't issue it. It's actually clearer than we think. And there's been a lot of back and forth, lots of conversation, but also there's law. The law says it's 500 feet. If you want to do something different than 500 feet, go wild. It can't be more burdensome than alcohol and beverage, though, because that also became law 2 years ago. But if there's not anything in place right now.
That's maybe the clearest I've heard it described. And then my question is simply deeper into the left-hand side of the mic.
Yes.
What is that process? What are the databases and records, right?
Sure.
Because to the council member's point, like legislation was passed, but when you go to enact it and you go to build the processes to enforce the regulation, I wonder if it kind of got a little off track here in the sense of what is a place of worship? Darren, your question is, what is, under the eyes of the state, a place of worship?
Sure.
Does it have to be in a traditional building? Does it have to have a membership over X number of people? Does it have to meet on a specific date, right?
So fair.
Yeah, we've had 2 have been identified that are within the 500. They weren't hard to find, which leads to the question, what did the state do or not do that led them to not finding them?
I think cannabis is an ever-changing and really dynamic space because of us being at the federal level illegal and at the state level in more than 35 states legal. And so what you have is a super dynamic environment, and all of us are constantly having to pivot and be reactionary and try to stay ahead of the law, which is a challenge, as you all know. Your town attorney is probably best positioned to draft correspondence, not like I'm volunteering, but to draft the question properly to Director Robinson and perhaps CC her in-house counsel from OAG, who can then respond and help explain what their internal process is for identifying the setbacks and then those identified locations within the state that qualify or don't qualify. Because the internal regulatory moves are not visible to us as business owners, for sure, much less ordinary citizens. This, how they do what they do in the regs is sort of not on the left or right hand side of this mic. It's like outside the door around the corner.
I have a real time up.
There we go, council member.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
She is a rock star, by the way. She's engaged in a number of different efforts in the community, has been a mentor to kids. And so I feel fortunate to call her a friend. So to follow up on your point and to follow up on some of the points that were made, the executive branch vis-a-vis the county attorney does feel that the permit was not issued properly. And so a letter is being developed to pose the question and to please relook into this specific issue. And that will hopefully trigger the review once again of the license that has been issued for this specific facility. I hear you. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And again, and I followed the legislation from a public health perspective. And I think there was an interest in wanting to make sure that everybody wins here. And I think there was an intent in having the dispensaries be in locations that everybody felt more comfortable with, including the dispensaries. And so I think that's where we are. So I will follow up tomorrow to make sure that letter is sent. And I will make sure that we get a response. And we'll see where we go from there. In the meantime, I will push forward with, establishing some reasonable level of regulation at the local level, which is within the 100 feet. I have to figure out whether that's where on the property line that will be. I'm getting an update on that tomorrow. But again, it's based on what we've passed in terms of ordinance with liquor stores in the past. So think that's where we are.
So is there anything we can do to, support letter or something like that? Once you've, put your letter together, if you, CC us, then we could add on to
That would
that.
be great. And the
Okay.
letter that you all originally wrote a month and a half ago that brought this issue to my attention in the first place, I mean, this can be a follow-up to that. And now we know who to direct the letter to, which is super helpful.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Does anybody else want to say something? Sure, go ahead. One at a time. Name and street.
John Anderson, Farragut Avenue. I'll be quick here, just for your question. As far as due diligence, it took 15 seconds when this first issue first came up and came up with church in Google Maps.
Right.
Google Maps may be changing its mind. It looked at first it appeared like it was in the Giraffe building. Well, that's a Schlesinger building?
That's the Schlesinger, the old
That's
Schlesinger building,
Schlesinger
yes.
building. Now it is over in the Concord building on Concord Street. So, and there was a comment earlier about we actually met with the pastor. Where is this place? Is it
In the
Concord
Schlesinger
building or
building.
He's in the Schlesinger
Yeah, lower
building.
level.
There's more than,
Two.
yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
okay. The other.
And the Concord building does have a church as well. The
Yeah.
Iglesias de.
Yeah.
It's a Spanish,
Yes.
yes,
But as far as due diligence, 15 seconds.
I know.
They can't really hide behind that.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But thank you for that information.
Good, next. Oh, well, he's online.
Hello, I'm Rob Sachs.
Oh.
I'm also a resident of Farragut Avenue and neighbors to all these fine folks here and next door neighbor Leslie. And so my property, I would say, is within 0 feet of this new proposed dispensary. And I share everyone's feelings too about if it was across the street next to the liquor store, there's a liquor store, there's a bar across the street. We've got no problems with that. Fine. It's the fact that it was literally this, we're worried about activities literally being where on the other side of the fence where my kids are playing. That's the problem. It's not the problem with dispensary or cannabis or anything. It's just the proximity. And so I think this proposed legislation is just, let's just treat it the same as the liquor store. And that seems completely reasonable. And I'm glad that this thing is going forward. And I guess it's interesting to hear from the cannabis perspective of like, hey, we want to be good members of the community. So to me, it's a little confusing why someone would want to open up a store that is directly abutting my property and Leslie's property, and why I understand there's a lot of hoops to go through, but don't you want to be good neighbors too? And say, hey, we can find a place across the street. There's liquor. None of us have any problems with the liquor store across the street. It's fine. So I guess like thinking through just like if this win-win idea, it just I think what's upsetting to us is that it felt like someone was trying to sneak it in. It felt like they weren't taking into consideration the neighbors and I'm glad that the attention's been called, but I guess it's more of a comment than a question. But I guess we all felt like a little bit powerless because it's like something's happening right next to us, and we're not opposed to it in general, but it felt like we were kind of locked out of the process until we all kind of raised up and said, hey, this is not cool with us. So I guess my question to the council maybe is what can we do to just be a little bit more empowered? And maybe we're doing it now, but it just felt like the way this all happened just felt a little shady.
Yeah.
That's my comment.
Fair points for sure. And I wish they could say this is the only example of where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. But, I've been in government now for 20 years. And it is not, sadly, the only example. But in this case, I think it is going to have a reasonable solution and outcome. And while it was painful to get where we are now and caused a lot of anxiousness and anxiety, I credit you guys, frankly, for bringing this to our attention and the town as well. And I think, forging these types of alliances gives me a little bit more faith that the system does work from time to time. And so how often do you guys meet?
Once a month.
Once a month. All right. So hopefully by this time next month, I'll have more updates.
Okay.
And obviously you guys literally know where I live. I live on Summit Avenue. I think now you all know where I live. And so we can obviously stay in communication, but I think a letter would be great from the town.
Sure.
And I would love to get the contact information for the immediately adjacent neighbors too, because your voice in particular needs to be heard here. And we may reference you or encourage the county attorney to reference you in the letter.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now you want to get up?
Todd Franco, I live on Farragut with everyone else in a new house. And I'm not gonna repeat what everyone else has said, but I just want to say thank you for coming, actually. One thing I've been sort of disappointed by, and I think a lot of us said, we haven't heard from the actual owners.
I don't know who they are either.
I know who they are.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, their explanation for doing this process in this way. I don't think any of us, or maybe we do, have any problem with the marijuana aspect of it. I think it really is the proximity, and also just the 500-foot barrier laid out in the state statute is very clear. And then, because these don't have like a steeple and they're not prominent, they somehow get treated as others. And I've spoken to the pastor at one of the churches, and he's against this, but he doesn't really feel like he has the power to speak up, right? And this also benefits us as well, right? To speak up, but it also benefits him as well. So I'm hopeful. I mean, it's been aggravating trying to chase down who's responsible for this. Lots of other folks have tried as well. The county says it's the county, state says it's the county. So I'm looking forward to this getting resolved. And so let's say thank you for everyone's effort.
Yeah. One more update.
So good.
Sure, stay all night.
Yeah,
This is like staff working on this. So the legislation will be introduced on Tuesday. And it will be expedited so that it's passed by July 1st, the deadline that local jurisdictions can pass and enact legislation to provide some reasonable ordinances. I would like to humbly request if you all are available to testify when there is a public hearing for this, because there may be one or two colleagues who may have understandable questions, but hearing directly from community residents, because everything everybody has said is infinitely reasonable. And so I think having that voice heard as well as the town would be terrific. So I'll give you the specific date of when that public hearing will be. You'll have about 2 weeks notice. It's on Tuesdays. You can do them virtually. You don't have to be in Rockville. Rockville's beautiful this time of year. And we'll go from there. Thank you.
I will pass that on to Mayor Ashton that you think Rockville is beautiful.
That's right.
This time of year.
Matt Rand, Farragut Avenue, just one quick data for you all as you are moving this process forward. I did file a complaint to the Cannabis Commission officially. I've heard zero back from the commission. I also sent letters to virtually everybody out there, including the governor. I've heard nothing back. You and the town are the only public officials that have responded to any of my correspondence. So just flag that for you. Maybe the Cannabis Commission, I know it's new, right, but they should at least respond to an official grievance and other letters and emails, even to the executive of the commission.
Matt, I think our response from the cannabis was that it's not our problem, it's the county.
Yeah,
Is that bit more or less what they're.
They did respond. We did reach out to Director Robinson. We did get a response from them, and they deflected to
the county
zoning for the UNO and the permitting.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll have better luck with them. Yeah. Does anybody else would like to? Oh, Al? Sorry. Okay, well, I'm going to start with Al because I can see his name.
All right. Hi there. Maybe I should go last because I was going to change the topic slightly.
Oh, okay. Who else is up? I can't see. Who?
Roger.
Oh, Roger. Go ahead, Roger.
I live on Farragut Avenue, married to Dr. Westbrook, who you heard from earlier. As I understand it, the county provides a permit also, as well as the state. Is that what I heard earlier?
So any business, just as it would be with any business, sprinklers, all of the requisite requirements, but it's not specific to cannabis. What I will be doing in the zone text amendment that I propose will be specific to cannabis dispensaries that can't be within 100 square feet, but all of the other cannabis associated policies, as we have learned better than anybody else has explained tonight, is done at the state level.
Okay, so the county does provide a permit as though it were a normal business. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Any of the requirements that would be commensurate with any sort of retail business, those same provisions would apply.
Okay, and has that permit been granted yet, or do you know?
Not the use and occupancy.
Not the use and occupancy,
Okay.
but it's still sitting with the Department of Permitting Services because there's this other issue that has not yet been resolved. And so they feel somewhat stalled, but per what is in their jurisdiction, I think it's safe to say they were prepared to move forward, but in light of all of these other issues, they're holding off.
So a lawyer would know whether or not you could ask them to hold off until you have a vote at the county council on the issue of the 100-foot distance from residential areas, or would that be?
I'm not sure that we can do that, but what we are doing is going to, as we said, we're going to pursue the state angle directly, which is, but we also are going to solicit the Attorney General's office, whose Assistant Attorney General is assigned to this case. But we are going to raise this up the flagpole within their office.
So if I were a member of the county council, I would go to the permitting people and say, can you hold off on this until the council has a chance to vote on the 100-foot issue? And then if it passes, the council say, I'm sorry, we can't give you a permit. But I don't know if that's legal or not. That would be an attorney and obviously I don't want the county to be sued. On this issue.
Yeah, we can't do anything out of we can't do anything out of the regulatory process that's been set forth. So we're going to pursue the angles that are the appropriate angles.
Okay. The final question I have is, if this comes to pass and the dispensary does open up, are there any zoning regulations that control the hours that it can be open?
I don't know the answer to that, but it looks like we might have an answer.
Yeah, I can. Lots. Yeah. So yes, there are regulations for literally everything. From hours of operation, there's no smoking anywhere around the dispensary and the property location. Typically, like what you're looking at is like as the crow flies for lot lines at the state level, but that's not written anywhere. You also, you have regulations around about who can work there. Like they have background checks. You have security requirements, like every single inch basically of the dispensary has to be covered with 360 cameras. That has to be monitored. There has to be backup. Most dispensaries.
Can I just interrupt? My main concern is, since this will be a few feet from my bedroom, whether or not they're going to be open at 1 a.m.
No, they will not be open at 1 a.m. They cannot be open.
What are their hours? Do you have, what are the regulations for hours? Do you
I
know?
believe it's 9 to 9.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Oh, okay. Christina, can I ask you one more question, since you are a literal resident?
Sorry. Happy to be of service.
Again, I know I'm somewhat kicking a horse on my issue of, did the state err in issuing the license? I want to make sure I understand it. There is a specific dispensary that is looking at this location.
Are we talking about the bank building?
Yeah, the bank.
Yes. Okay.
And if we're saying, hey, that location is not appropriate, I don't think it's a, hey, we're looking for you, company LLC, to lose your license. What is the difference? They have the license. They're just looking for a location.
They don't have a license.
Okay.
The final licensure is issued upon final inspection. Final inspection of the premise by the MCA, which comes after you have your use and occupancy.
Okay.
So this process is not written, by the way.
Yeah.
So we're tracking together in this meeting. But once you get your final permitting from your jurisdiction for all of the required permits, and it varies by jurisdiction, then the MCA will come and do a final inspection. That inspector has a list, actually, what they're looking for. They will then give you, hey, you passed, you didn't pass, this is what you need to correct, here are the corrective measures. And then eventually you will get your license.
If you can, remedy all of those issues.
Correct.
But if it is found that there is a protected area within the 500-foot setback that you cannot correct when they issue the license.
I am not Director Robinson. She is relatively new. If I were new in my role, I would be very careful and I would look at precedent. And she is an attorney. She's a Harvard trained attorney. She is sharp. I would look at what has been done historically. And you don't get approval to go into a space without having been approved for the 500-foot setback. Like, that is vetted before you go and get your property. Most people would do that, but like, you can do that. You can send your location to the MCA, get approval, and then move forward. The new licensees are different. I don't know. There were 3 rounds of licenses, more or less. One in 2014-15, they had their own set of rules. Then those that came through 2023 House Bill or 2020 House Bill 2, they had their own set of rules. And then the new licensees have their own. I don't know what this owner is and what category he falls into. But depending on what round you came in, you had a different set of requirements placed upon you by the MCA. When I came through for my first set of licenses, I had to get approval on my location before I got the location. So if they already said yes, I don't know if that would be reversed, but I'm sure they'd be willing to look at it with the right motivation, the right person asking the question. Okay. And I'm really sorry. I will say this. Most business owners try to be really good neighbors. You know, most of us go into the community. We talk to people before we come in. We get to know people. We build relationships with nonprofits. We have community impact. We do all of these things prior to moving in. That doesn't always happen, but most of the time that is the case.
Anyone else?
Al.
Oh, Al, sorry. Is there anybody? I don't see any other
nope,
hands.
just
Okay. Okay, Al, go ahead.
All right, I wanted to switch to the non-controversial topic of income tax increases. So, good evening, everyone. Al Carr, I live on Washington Street.
Are you're switching topics before we finish this one out? Is that what you're asking?
Well, Councilmember Alvarez did mention in his remarks that the county council is considering the county executive's proposal to change the piggyback income tax. It's currently 3.2%, and the proposal is to change that to 3.3%. So municipalities get, my understanding is 17% of the income tax collected within their jurisdictions. So if in the event that the county council decided to increase the piggyback income tax, that would tend to benefit municipalities like the town of Kensington for our budget. Isn't that so?
He's talking to you, Gabe.
Yeah. I don't know, Al. That's a good question. I can follow up. I hadn't thought about that. So, but I will ask first thing tomorrow whether or not that's in fact the case.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
All right. Any other questions on cannabis? Go ahead, Rob. Rob, you gotta go. I'm sorry.
Well, it's already first week in May. He said it's going to be passed in July, and this thing's being held up, and it's going to be reviewed. So it's really only 2 months we're waiting to figure it out, because, well, if it passes, you're saying that it would be effective as of July, and if they don't have the permit by that date, then it's over, right? Is that? I mean, I just want to understand. Like, we're only sweating it out for 2 months at this point.
I don't know. So, because I think that it sounds like the license has been given, or no. To be honest, I'm gonna have to get back to you with the response to that, because again, we're sending the letter by Friday. We'll work with the town. We will get the answer to that question. We will let the powers that be know that from the county's perspective, we don't believe that this is a permissible location because there are not one but two faith-based congregations within 500 feet. And however you define faith-based congregation is not our issue, it's the state's, but these are two faith-based organizations. So, we are going to request that they revisit this particular issue and rule accordingly that this facility does not comply with the regulations set forth by the state. That is what we hope the outcome will be, and we believe will be.
That's separate from the legislation.
It's separate
From the legislation. The legislation is more prospective, so that this doesn't happen again, or, we clearly define regulations moving forward. But sadly, this particular facility would not be subject to the zone text amendment on it. Yeah.
I'm clear on that. I'm sorry.
Go back, go back up.
Sorry, I'm sorry to delay. But what I heard was final license doesn't happen until there's a final inspection, which theoretically, if you're delaying, if they're going to have to go back and look at it, I don't know, maybe they have to answer my grievance. I don't know what the process is and all this stuff. But theoretically, your law passes before they get final license.
But I think the problem is you're allowing this person to continue through the process, and they get to the very end where they've put out a lot of money fixing up this building, and then you say, "Oh, I'm sorry."
But they could have done a 15-second Google search.
Yeah, I know. I'm not excusing them, but it is a reason for them to sue the county because of the amount of money that they put into it. Not that they would win, but that's where it would probably end up going. Okay, good. Not saying I agree with it, but that is where they would go.
I watched, I stand in my bedroom back window and watch what's going on over there, and there's no activity. And I was told that they were holding off to find out what the final ruling was going to be. So I don't believe that they're putting a lot into it. They did have some yard people over there to clean up the yard. But that's it as of right now. The other thing that I just want to say, and I'm sorry to be just continuing on this, if there's some way something could be said where all I have to do is step over a fence to be in their yard. The 100-foot thing, that's even extreme in terms of what I'm looking at. And if that could be mentioned in this 500-foot thing, I think it would really help.
Yeah.
So just on our expertise on cannabis. So at some point, would they fall into the legislation if they've stopped working on the building? They're not moving forward with that?
Can you repeat your question? Just make it clear.
At what point does the person who is expecting to get the license, would they decide this isn't working for me, and then they walk away? Is there a point where they would walk away?
I'd be trying to guess what another business owner's position would be. What I can say is cannabis businesses are taxed at the federal level with an effective 70 to 75% tax rate. So every dollar earned off the top, it's 75% gone. We just voted at the General Assembly session, this last session, to raise taxes, thank you, Governor Moore, from 9% on cannabis to 12%. So you're talking about a lot of money gone. So you have very small margins in cannabis. Why I say that is that most of these people are working for years before they get their license. I was given a preliminary license in 2021. I opened my store on January 18th of 2025. You're talking about 4 years worth of work before you open your doors. I just want to demonstrate that there is a will to have the business in most people's cases, and the desire to walk away like, didn't work out for me, slim to none. You cannot get any FDIC insured bank to bank you. My employees can't even get loans at their banks because they work in cannabis. All of this to say it is a grind. And so for someone to just be like, it's not going to work out for me. Most of us are lawyered up pretty tight. And so it's, everybody's got lawyers these days. But the point is, for someone to just walk away, again, I don't know this individual, but it's not anything I did. I fought for years.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Thank you. All right. Gotta go.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gabe. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, I think the council is in agreement that we will tag on a letter to whatever Gabe is sending. I know you guys are a little bit disappointed because I've talked to many of you that we really don't have authority in this. And I know everybody thought we could wave a wand and make it go away. But there are certain things that as a council, we don't have control over things. And zoning is one of them. So we have a very minimal amount of oversight on houses, on residential homes, setback, density, and heights. But after that, we don't know anything else until somebody moves in and asks for a electrical permit, plumbing permit, and a sign permit. So we don't find out what businesses are coming in until they call and say, I need a permit, usually for a sign. So, no. Well, the signs, yes, right. Yes, signs we do. Yes. So, so that.
And signs are another thing that, at least in the state regulation, are very deliberate about what can be signed, how they can be signed, what can be mentioned, so that it, my words, kind of more or less blends in.
Yeah.
And is not, its use is not obvious.
Yeah. The Michael plumbing sign, which has now been turned off, is not in our jurisdiction. We have no control over that, but we did complain about it and it was not permitted. So that's why it's probably not on right now, and that you can thank us for complaining about it. But my guess is they'll bring it into compliance and at some point it will come back on, but that is out of our jurisdiction. So we have no control over that. I know, you gotta go.
Was, she said that you all could write a letter.
Yeah, we are going to write the letter.
Yep.
Yeah, no. Well, we can do that. Yes. And we will. And we will.
The last comment I will make, somebody, and Robin might have been you, had mentioned, like, I don't know if we are as residents doing what we can or what we should. I'll take it back to the very beginning. We don't get notice as a town. You may think, like, how did you not know this was coming into town? Businesses come and go from the town all the time. There's no notice that we are given. But as soon as we found out from residents sending the same blog article that you all read, that same day, the mayor, myself, started getting on the phone. We talked to Matt, we talked to the town attorney, we started calling the county. The same things you were doing, right? We were researching, we were learning, we were starting to ask the questions. The speed of government sometimes is it took that 4 weeks for everybody to kind of be like, all right, we all collectively now understand that everybody's pointing in opposite directions. I wish something had come sooner. And I'm really grateful to the mayor for getting Councilmember Albornoz here in person. You can see, it was very important to him that he be here and not on Zoom. So that's to say, like, if you see something, say something, right? Send us an email, stop us at the park, shoot us a text. We will jump on these issues. We don't have a crystal ball that we always know every single thing that happens in the county.
So I did find out a beauty school is going in where Urban Thrift was. So I did find that out. Yeah. Okay. You're going to take classes yourself there.
So, hey, guess what? My name is still Alicia Schechter, and I have not yet moved to Farragut Avenue. I still live on Wheatley Street. But I did want to talk about the definition of 100 feet. Because we've heard about as a crow flies, is it from here? Is it from there? So it's entirely possible that your door is on one street and their door is on another street, and there's more than 100 feet between your doors, and I don't like that. I think it has to be, and I hope that you'll work with the county council to remind them that it has to be maybe 100 feet between the closest points.
Lot lines, yeah.
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 Lot lines. Yeah, it's not going to be the middle of your living room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sue Ellen, in other zoning issues, how is distance determined? Lot lines.
Same with noise ordinance. It's by the lot line.
By the lot line.
Yeah,
not
but
by
We
the,
just look at the liquor
not by the
No, it
door.
also depends on what it says, because sometimes they change that. But generally speaking, it would be the lot line.
Unless it's specific, like there's specificity on the signage. It has to be a certain way, but with the noise ordinance, how it's implied is the lot line.
So I guess in this case, we'd want to look at the alcohol regulation and
as a
how
comp.
it has defined the
Yeah,
distance.
that's very useful to look at.
Yes.
Because they've been doing this for a long time and they had their sensitive properties for that too. And so they've had to interpret that for a long time.
Okay, good. All right. Anybody else? We good? You guys
Thank
happy?
you all for coming.
Good. Thank you so much. Wait, what? You don't want to see us pass the budget? What? What? I know.
Goodness.
Yeah, we're good with everything else.
All right, good. We got it covered. We're being sued. That's okay.
We're making 2 more sidewalks on Farragut Avenue.
Eric's not working tonight, so I will not be having.
No pizza? No.
Oh, man.
Well, it's not gonna be that late.
It's not
Not
planned, but yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll be out of here before 9. That's the hope. So Ellen, I think we're good. If you do want to head on back over to PG.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. I think we got everything else covered here. So we will move down to reports from the council. So who wants to start?
I can be quick.
That can be quick.
Should I go?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to send a letter to State Highway Administration requesting for a designated person to work with for implementing our bicycling and pedestrian priority area plan, or PIPA plan that was officially passed July 1st, 2024. So it's almost a year now, and we still do not have effective coordination with the state on implementing some of the shorter term measures that come up in the plan. So we're going to request the focal point to work with, coordinate, and take advantage of things like the striping that's being done on Connecticut Avenue to narrow the lanes as recommended in the BIPA plan. So we have that drafted and Tracy's going to send it this week, I think.
I can do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And along those lines, we have quarterly meetings with SHA, which we're going to, we talk about all the issues where we're working with them and collaborating on, and continuing to push these improvements in pedestrian, bicycling, access, and safety. We'll have another meeting coming up in the next month or so to continue liaising with them. And then the only other thing I would like to mention is that we completed the Mobility and Traffic Committee and PBAS, Pedestrian Bicycling Access and Safety Working Group, completed our bicycling and walkability audit. We do it every 2 years where we literally look at every street and identify areas for improvements, take a bunch of photos, put them in a database. The co-chair, Alan Simon, and I will be meeting with you, Matt, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow to go over the recommendations. There's like maybe 8 priorities, and these are much more. I mean, we've done most of the things that we've identified over the previous 2 audits. So these are more around, cutting shrubs and cutting back visibility, improving invisibility, identifying we've identified some significant areas of sidewalk that are cracked or tripping hazards and so on. So they're more of more small, minor issues. That's it for me.
Okay, great. Darren? Oh, Anne, are you there?
Yes.
You want to add anything?
Just briefly, I want to thank Carolyn Morrissey with our Greenscape Committee for organizing Master Gardeners and coming up with a plan with 2 local businesses. And they've now installed some native plants in front of the Look Again resale shop, Prevention of Blindness, and Compass Art Center. So this was a new effort, and take a look when you're walking around town. I just want to thank Carolyn and her team.
Yeah, I saw Look Again, and it looked fabulous. It really looked great. Really, really nice. Okay, Darren?
I don't really have much to go over since the last meeting. I've looked at this last term as an opportunity to help Matt with code revisions, and I haven't done a great job about that, but I would hope to either send you things before my term ends in June, or you might get emails from me after.
Okay.
Connor?
Just a couple. Anne and I and the parking committee met on May 2nd. A big thank you to them, but a bigger one to Matt and to Annie, our code and parking enforcement officer. We had a chance to sit with staff and get a sense of how, everything from signage to hotspots to enforcement and challenges with enforcement, and gave us a lot of insight, which will be really helpful as we start to think about how the parking needs and challenges in the town are evolving. Second is a reminder, dates have shifted a little bit on the Montgomery County Public Schools boundary study. This is a chance for public engagement on the reopening of Charles Woodward High School. Earlier in the process, they were thinking the dates would be next week. They've shifted a little bit. There are virtual sessions being held Tuesday, May 27th. You can find that on the county's website. There's one from 11 to 12 p.m., one from 12 to 1, and then one from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., and one from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Those will all be on Zoom. The links are not yet available. They are coming soon. There's also an in-person session for the boundary study as it pertains to Woodward. Again, they are running 4 sessions, 2 at Wheaton High School and 2 at Kennedy High School. The Wheaton High School ones are Wednesday, May 28th, and the Kennedy High School ones are Thursday, May 29th. They are very intentionally trying to move the location around a little bit within the areas affected. So the last community engagement sessions were at Walter Johnson High School. So now we're at Wheaton and then Kennedy. So if you have an opportunity to be engaged, either virtually or in person, I really recommend that you do so to learn where they're at. Shortly after these sessions, these sessions should present the first round of options for boundaries. There's going to be an iterative process. They are going to present the first rounds. They will take community feedback and engagement. They will see if they want to alter them for a second round, which will come out more in August. Again, take feedback and then have what would be the third round, or seemingly the version that they are ready to recommend by September. They have to, as it was expressed at the original meeting, they have to keep to the timeline somewhat because they have to have these to the school board. They need to have them approved by March so that they can then begin doing facility bus food service planning for 2028 when they are to go into effect. This is everything from notifying, households, where catchment areas have changed, redoing bus routes, efficiency planning of all that. So if you want to get engaged, you got the 27th and 28th.
And it's really important because this is, boundary talk on our schools. So please stay engaged. We don't have much control in this, but it's important to be engaged. And I want to thank Connor for going to the meetings, which aren't always the most exciting things in the world to spend your evenings at.
It will be now.
But it's really important because I know, what you buy a house sometimes around schools, there's an expectation. I don't think it's touching elementary schools. Is that correct?
No, this one is not. The boundaries for elementary schools are going to remain unchanged. But from there on, all feeding middle schools and the high schools that touch all of these rezoned areas. So it's a significant part of the school district will all be affected.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I'll just real quick. I want to just mention the day of the book. It was great. We had super weather. I don't know who got to come down. I did see Ann. Did you make it down?
I was there for the parade.
Okay. Wasn't that great? Somebody asked me if I wanted to wear one of those big heads. I said no. No, I know. I was like, no, thank you. Anyway, but that was very cool. I also want to thank Marco, Joe, and Jason, our Public Works, who worked all day. They started at 6. They didn't get back until 8:30 at night. It was a long day. A lot of it is just waiting because they can't open Howard Avenue till all those tents are down. So some of it was a lot of waiting, but I want to thank them for their work, and as well as our staff in office. I know Alex was doing a lot of the no parking signs and a few more were added on at the very end. So thank you all. It's these events are a lot of work for our staff, and I appreciate all the effort they put into it. I just want to say that I did attend the Jewish Heritage recognition at County Council on Thursday. It was a great event, good turnout. And then when I was done with that, I went on down to Pinstripes to attend the Jubilee Champion Breakfast. Jubilee is a big presence in our town. And they're very happy about the program that they've now added, which is to train people to work with disabilities. So a lot of their clients were there, and it's a very moving experience to attend one of these. I want to remind the council that the last day to register for the summer conference is May 20th. I don't know if anybody's planning on going. Might be going by myself. So I know you have a meeting on the 24th, so or BIPA, or not BIPA, PBAS.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's planning on going, but if you are, please let Susan know. I also want to ask if the council wants to support extending the sidewalk from Kensington Parkway all the way to Edgewood Road on Metropolitan. This is a request from Capitol View. It's just our support for it, to send letters to our District 18 delegation asking them to try to get sidewalks to Edgewood. So
It'd be on the north side.
Yeah.
There's an existing sidewalk that stops within the corporate limits of the town.
Yeah.
Part of the sidewalk would be within the town and then go up to.
The topography is a little sketchy there, but considering how dangerous it is to walk on Metropolitan Avenue.
100%.
Yeah,
Support that. Yeah, this is something we talked about.
We've had some discussions with Councilmember Kate Stewart's office about this previously. We have been supportive in the past.
Yeah, it is a state road, so we need to get state highway involved with it. So see if we can.
What's the list?
I know. So we'd like to get I told Beth Weaver's the one that reached out to me, and I told her I would ask for.
Yeah, we'll proper.
Okay, great. Do you guys want to put the letter together, or do you want to?
Actually,
just a bottle of water. Fortunately, it didn't break.
This is where it ends, right here.
Do you guys want to give some comment about it, and then we put a letter together?
Yeah.
And
Right?
Okay.
Is there a letter that they sent to us?
She's gonna let me know. She's gonna send me a draft
Okay. Yeah.
of the letter, and then we'll review it. Can I get PBAS to review it?
Yeah, happy to review
Great.
it.
Okay, super.
to the
You have a question?
No, you just make me remember that. Where are we on the
I'm just looking
sidewalk?
at the opposite direction.
Parkway
Yep, that's it.
up Weekly to St. Paul.
You want to talk about the sidewalk on Wheatley? Up to St. Paul
And I
Park?
have no problem supporting this one because it's not even all
Yeah.
on the letter of
He
support.
can give an update definitely on the.
Do you want to wait till my
Parkway.
report or?
Yeah, let me.
Sorry.
I can add it.
Gun here.
I do,
Just jump the gun.
because I put it in the email to the council.
Yeah.
So there is an update, a slight update.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to, I think by June, since the budget will be done in this month, maybe we can reach out to Kate Stewart's office about an HOC meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So I'd like to definitely do it over the summer for sure,
Yes.
before people go too far away. I also was on a call on Friday morning with Dr. Stoddard and some other people from the county executive's office and the other municipalities, particularly Tacoma Park, Rockville, and Gaithersburg, about how to deal with ICE coming into their towns, as well as the federal workforce and federal grants. It was a little depressing, especially on the ICE. We're not touched as much by it because we don't do social services, but our larger municipalities are, and it was a really difficult call to be on because there's so much uncertainty in the world right now that they don't know how to address it. A lot of the grants are being pulled. If the Congress had passed these grants, then that's illegal. Trump can't just, cancel them because Congress has approved them, but you have to go to court to do that. So a lot of the smaller nonprofits don't have the money to do that. They said the county can, but it's expensive. They can just barely, to do it. And they have no idea what kind of grants are going to be available when they, in the new budget, when the new budget is ever passed. So, but the whole thing is just, you feel it more in our larger cities in Montgomery County than we do here. And it's out there, but they're living it on the street. And I really applaud what they're trying to do and how difficult it is. So let's, when we complain about other things, let's think about what our other municipalities and the county are facing and some of the people that are living. Okay, so that's all I've got. Is there any questions regarding our reports?
Do we have you sent an email about this, and I'm not sure if it happened already, the donuts with the.
Yeah, donuts tomorrow morning.
Is it tomorrow morning?
Yeah, coffee, donuts, coffee with a cup.
Yeah, it's coffee with.
Coffee with a cup is tomorrow, 9 to 10:30 at M&T Bank. Everybody's welcomed. So I'll be there at 9. We have a meeting at 9:30.
I might try to come back.
Yeah, so it's 9 to 10:30. So come out and meet Officer Johnson, and as well as give support to our M&T people that work in the bank. Those people, we like those people. They're super nice. And, and they've been, they were robbed twice. It's, which is very traumatic for them. And so I think showing the support is really important. So, yeah. So, okay. So that's what I've got. Okay.
We've completed the paving of Howard Avenue. The intersection of Howard Avenue and Armory Avenue will be transitioned over to an all-way stop tomorrow, which is new. We will have a formal traffic order before the council next month. We wanted it to be posted before we brought the traffic order. So there will be a change there, a noticeable change. We did this at the recommendation of the traffic engineer. The concern about the pedestrian movements at the intersection and the amount of movement from vehicles, specifically Safeway traffic. So we think this will be a safer alternative. So.
Can you tell me that corner?
Sure. It's the intersection of Armory Avenue and Howard Avenue, the corner where the clock shop is.
And the gas station.
The gas station. So that is going to become an all-way stop. Means east and westbound Howard Avenue and northbound Armory will all have to stop. So
there's now a crosswalk there.
There's going to be a crosswalk. It's not outlined yet. The striping company is about 2 weeks out, but the stop sign is going to go up tomorrow. We anticipate the first few weeks will probably be a little challenging with the new signage. You'll see some orange flags and some new signposts and everything.
Matt, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Anne has to drop off at 9. So can we go ahead and do the voting
Absolutely.
on the ordinances?
Absolutely.
So that she can participate in that?
Sure. So I will start with ordinance number O-02-2025. This is an ordinance of the mayor and town council of Kensington to appropriate and adopt the fiscal year 2025-2026 FY26 budget and levy a tax on certain real property and personal property within the tax property article of the annotated code of Maryland. We held the public hearing at the April town council meeting. Public comments were accepted until 4 p.m. this past Friday, which is May 2nd. We received one additional comment. It was provided to the mayor and council through your email. And we need to pass this tonight because we are required to provide the tax rate to the state.
Okay. All right. We are not taking any further comments on this. So I just need a motion.
And then
Can I make an amendment?
Yeah, one amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
You want to make it? Or?
Yeah. So I need to request the council to make one amendment to the introduced ordinance. It is to accept $800,000 from the state of Maryland through 2 separate bond bills that were previously allocated to the Flatsville Station project. They've been reappropriated for the acquisition of the M&T drive-through property on Montgomery Avenue. These funds will be taken in under the grant line item as general revenue and will be allocated within the CIP to general government acquisitions line for the acquisition of the M&T Bank property.
Okay.
So
Thank you. All right.
you can just do as amended. So
That would probably be a good idea.
I wrote it down. Yes, but I
We got
would.
the pace here. We got to get in
I move
down here before.
that we adopt budget ordinance O-02-2025 as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Anne. Okay, number 2.
Ordinance number O-03-2025 is an ordinance of the mayor and town council of Kensington to amend chapter 5, housing and building regulations by enacting article 7, transient lodging facilities to incorporate chapter 54 of the Montgomery County Code entitled Transient Lodging Facilities, which contains various provisions to protect, regulate, and license hotels, bed and breakfast, and short-term residential rentals, and to make conforming changes. We held the public hearing at our April council meeting. The public hearing was held open until 4 p.m. this past Friday. We received no additional comments. This ordinance would allow the town, in addition to Montgomery County, to regulate specifically Airbnbs, which is why this ordinance was presented before the council.
Okay. Does the council have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, we're not taking public comment. I need a motion.
I'll move to adopt ordinance number O-03-2025.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
All right, resolution.
Resolution number R-09-2025 is a resolution of the Kensington Town Council extending appointments made by the mayor for all members of the Development Review Board, DRB, in an effort to adjust the service terms in accordance with the town's annual organizational meeting and council assignments. This affects the direct appointments of Mark Hudson and Leslie Maxim. It will extend it until the council holds its organizational meeting in July, and then does the same for the additional members of the DRB next year. So once council assignments are made at the organizational meeting, we're no longer trying to shuffle the DRB and not necessarily know who the council liaisons are. So.
Okay. All right, council have any questions? Okay, this is a resolution. Any comments from the audience? All right, don't see any hands. Could I get a motion?
Sure. I move that we adopt resolution R-09-2025.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, council.
Last resolution.
Last resolution, R-10-2025, is a resolution of the mayor and town council of Kensington approving a variance to allow an encroachment of 8 inches into the side yard setback for the property located at 10223 Summit Avenue in accordance with section 5-104 building lines of the town code. We held a variance hearing at the April council meeting. We received no additional comment. We were directed by the council to put together a resolution in favor of the encroachment into the side yard step back.
Okay, council have any questions? Anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, could I get a motion?
I'll move to adopt resolution R-10-2025.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
And thank you for joining us. And
Yes.
we look forward to when you can come home.
Thank you for accommodating my travel. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, so let's go back to the town manager report.
Any additional questions on the intersection? Okay, yeah, so we'll do the formal traffic order next month that the council will have to adopt. And like I said, the striping contractor is scheduled right now for the week of the 19th. So the center line, the crosswalks, we will be installing stop ahead decals on the actual pavement during this at the new intersection, all-way intersection. We will also be adding one on the eastbound direction at the train station to notify individuals that there is a pedestrian crossing there. One of our inlet parking spaces kind of obstructs the view of motorists. We discussed about removing that parking space and didn't think that was justified.
We need this.
So we're going to put the stamped head crossing signal ahead just prior to that crosswalk. This striping contract will also include pedestrian crossing ahead at the intersection of Pliers Mill and Wheatley at the recommendation of the traffic engineer. We received some feedback a few months back from residents. You'll also see some signage improvements in that location as well over the next month.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Council have any questions or anything else? Anybody in the audience have a question? Okay, you go ahead.
We have a verbal agreement in place with the resident on Wheatley Street whose property we're trying to get an easement for to get the Oberon sidewalk. Alex and I met with him earlier this week. We're pretty confident that we have an agreement in place. We sent along all the information to the town attorney to draft an easement. I'm hoping to have that before the council next month. That is kind of the biggest step we have, at least, legally and everything that we need to do. Depending on what the council directs staff to do, it's most likely that we will start the Oberon sidewalk project sometime this calendar year. I don't know how far we'll get. Our plan is to at least go to Oberon at this point and then figure out, there's some right-of-way issues that we need to get through with a couple residents between the intersection of Oberon and Kensington Parkway and the actual park. But at least the major hurdle for us looks like it's going to be completed. So
just for clarity, well, the resident that you have the easement for, his address is on Wheatley. This is for
The
along
rear
the rear of the property on Kensington Parkway.
correct, yes.
To extend the sidewalk from
The office.
the office
Yeah.
building to the corner of Oberon.
Correct. We have requested an easement of over 1,700 square feet, which is a lot.
Mhm.
There will be some compensation involved. That will be before the council, hopefully next month. There's a curb cut involved, and there will be some removal of some trees. Any trees that we are removing in this project, it's more of a streetscape. Once we're completed, will all be replanted and off of our fruit tree list. So.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience?
Sure.
You have to go, you seriously, no, you have to. I know, sorry. You should just sit on that side.
I almost feel like I want to ask this after the meeting, but
That's
it's a quick question. Have we discussed as a town sort of Dietrich and Knowles, that intersection?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Knowles is a state road.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a state road. As Councilmember Engel mentioned earlier this evening,
He's
we do meet
state.
with the State Highway Administration. I'm going to leave it at that, but they're aware of our concerns. It may be something that we end up doing ourselves. I don't know. But State Highway is aware of the issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot
Do you
of
have a
choices
specific-
there.
What was your specific concern? Because it's good to hear from.
Yeah.
Sure. The specific concern is varied, given that my daughter is always crossing the street right there. Without a crosswalk, it's extraordinarily dangerous. So I try to tell her to go up, but she's a teenager, kind of, she doesn't listen to me. It's really dangerous. And the hedges on the owner's property that's on the corner of Dietrich and Knowles that is across from the wine and company shop.
They've actually cut those down.
They have been cut, but I'm wondering, like, how frequent is that going to be? Because for years it was sort of overgrown, and I know that they take care of they're in the yard quite a bit trying to take care of the property, but the hedges are a little bit dangerous. The angle, all of it creates for really dangerous conditions for pedestrians, and we just have several businesses that are, patronized by people who live in that section that walk across that street all the time. I've sat on that corner and seen at least like 5 near-death experiences. And so I was just curious because I haven't.
Have you seen the people from Silver Creek? They walk out their door and just cross 4 lanes of highway.
Yes. So
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
We've asked them to study it because I mean, there's the 2 crossings of Knowles at Connecticut
and Summit.
Yes.
And I live in the neighborhood too, as you know. And
Yes.
whenever I'm with I shouldn't say this on record, but I'm with my kids, I go to the lights, right?
Yes.
But when I'm by myself, I just
You
run
do it
over.
yourself.
Yes.
Everybody does.
And technically, it's a crosswalk. It's just unmarked.
It's
Yeah.
undefined.
It's a crossway. It's curb. It's corner to corner.
But so we're working to figure out how we can on the north side of the street narrow the road, so connect closer to the sidewalks, because there's a long way you have to walk when you're on the north side from Knoll Station over to Strohsnyder's. Can they kind of bump it out and widen it? So they're studying that, but then also we've asked them to study what should they do with that intersection? Should they, how do they mark it? Do they mark it? Do they direct people very clearly to the other intersections? Should they do something where it's a little bit more visible crosswalk?
Yes.
And we've been told that they're looking at it. And
Yes.
They're on the 7-year plan.
Yes.
They're looking more at the improvements on the north side between the east and west.
Okay.
I will say historically, as long as I've been here, they have shied away from putting a designated crosswalk at the intersection. They're looking at it. I will say it is unlikely that they would put one there unless there was some other change. The concern is the traffic movements and the visibility, unless there was some kind of safe zone in the center. I just don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thing that they're looking at right now is to change the turning radii on the north side.
Yes.
At the shopping center side, and closing that in and bringing it closer.
And that has its own issues because Stroh-Snyder's, the big trucks, the 18-wheelers, come around that corner to unload, and they need a wider space, especially if a car is at the stop sign.
Sure.
So every solution brings a problem.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a very big challenge. I'm in the last townhouse, and I've lived there for 45 years, and it has been bad forever. The entire time I've lived here.
Yeah.
So it is definitely, and I, like Nate, depending on the time of day, I will go down, but I like to cross the 2 lanes instead of now the 4. So I'll go over to the Kaiser's house at that corner and cross 2 lanes instead of 4 lanes on the other side. But yeah, it's a challenge. I don't even now am comfortable making a left in my car at certain times of the day. I'll just go down to Prospects, get on Summit, and sit in line and then go to the light. But it's a challenge.
What we keep telling them is that we want this studied and addressed before there's something, so we don't have to act in reaction to
anything tragic.
It's a serious tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No.
Thank you for asking.
Somebody needs to get on PBAS.
We're accepting new members.
I know.
Always.
What else we got? Is that it? When are they starting the stormwater on Hadley?
You should see some activity maybe next week.
Okay.
You might see some traffic barrels, and you'll probably see some paint lines for where the actual curb.
Okay, and the residents have been informed that
they've been informed. We told them our hope was by the second week of May. Now, whether they're actually saw cutting next week is unlikely, but they'll at least see some activity, maybe some chalk lines and stuff. So,
okay. So that's coming. I do want to thank the staff as well as Kate Stewart's staff, and I'm assuming Parks, for finally clearing out the culvert at Kensington Parkway and Frederick Avenue. It has been a mess. There's been a lot of back and forth. The amount of debris that was stacked up, you basically had about this much light in the bridge, under the bridge. And the amount of trash that was backed up. Water wasn't really flowing on the other side, and there was a lot of back and forth between our staff and Parks, Paul Ellis, who is the assistant chief of staff for Kate Stewart's office, and Parks saying, no, it's your responsibility, you're responsible. No, it's never been our responsibility. The bridge is our responsibility, but what's under the bridge is not our responsibility. So finally got worked out. They've cleared it. But, there's a tremendous amount of time that is spent on these things that should just be taken care of with a simple report. So, when you say, well, how come you haven't gotten because you're dealing with this stuff, which can just take a lot of time. So if we were successful, I'm very pleased that we got it done. So thank you, Matt, for all the work you did for that and everybody involved. So water is flowing again on the south side of town. Anyway, okay. Anything else from you guys? We're good.
I think we're
Any
good.
questions before we go into public appearances? I know it's late. I'm sorry. We had a lot of things that were very important to talk about, especially for Anne before she had to jump off. So if there's anything that you would like to bring up, it's not on the agenda. This is your opportunity to do so. Stuart?
Sure.
I don't know. She's talked a lot already. I know.
Hey, good evening, Stuart Sparker, Oberon Street. I just wanted to say that I'm going to be running for town council this election.
Great.
I want to introduce myself to the folks in the town, make a public record for public appearance for the record. If I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I look forward to working with the town and building upon the great success you all have had over the last year. So
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up to the plate. Appreciate it.
You'd like to volunteer for that.
He might be co-chair PMAS. Who knows? Yeah. Joe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Furman. I was wondering if if there's any other election updates, since we are about 3.5 weeks away from the town election, if there are other candidates that we know of or who have submitted their certificate of nomination form.
Well, we're happy to tell you it's public information, but you don't have 2.5 or 3.5 weeks. You have really a few days because the last day for the nomination is Monday, the 12th. So
I know
we'd
that.
by then.
That's not what I'm asking, though. I'm saying, do you have any updates on the town election, which is in 3.5 weeks? I know the deadline is the 12th of May for the nomination.
But then you would know who the candidates are.
I'm just asking if there are any other updates that you have that you know of. Councilmember Bartram said last month that he would make an announcement or make it known, I guess, at tonight's meeting. Maybe he did in an indirect way, but I'm not sure if he's running again or if Councilmember Connor Crimmins is. So any updates?
I've not filed and I'm not planning to run.
And I have filed.
Okay. See, that wasn't too hard. And finally, at the bridge that you mentioned, Mayor Furman, a few moments ago at Kensington Parkway and Frederick Avenue, will there be follow-ups by the county or the town to make sure that that Silver Brook continues to flow and that this backup of debris and other pollutants is taken care of once and for all?
Well, when Public Works is over there checking out Silver Creek, they will, if there's a problem, they'll let us know. But we do in some ways rely on some of our residents to, on certain things to keep us posted. If they see something, say something.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect example that the initial report came from a resident just walking along Kensington Parkway, took a photo, texted it, and was like, this seems not right. And so that's how this issue came to the town's attention. So if you're out walking your dog and see a bunch of debris, it doesn't seem right, just send an email, send a text.
Yeah, obviously that makes sense. But for Silver Creek, I just wonder if there's going to be continuing surveillance by town or county. That's the question I had, to make sure that this problem doesn't recur.
I mean, I say that because I know you're a big walker and you're down there. If you see something, you just snap a photo and text it.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that. And that's the case, but I'm not always looking under the bridge for accumulated debris, since that's a county and or town responsibility. But nonetheless, I hope that problem has passed.
Yeah, we'll be tougher on parks to take care of their water. Okay. Anything else? So when are we meeting again, guys? Let's see. We are meeting on Wednesday, June 11th. Does that work for everybody?
We'll be out of
the country.
Yeah, unfortunately, but it's just one that.
Are you?
Last meeting.
I know we don't want to be here for Jared's.
I find it just appalling that Nate is out of town, so I feel like we should reschedule.
I'm out of town.
It's a big goodbye party.
I am also out of town.
You actually have spoken first, but okay. Connor's fault.
Okay, so do we want to meet the 4th? Now, Anne is not here, but school will still be in session.
Yeah, the week before.
The week before work?
Does that affect anything we just passed?
Don't think so.
No, because budget numbers go in tomorrow.
We haven't had a hearing for anything where we'd be voting. We've covered everything. So I think we're good for the 4th.
Text me and see if
I was going to do that, but go ahead. Yeah, just see if she answers.
Okay.
So let's tentatively right now put it on the 4th, and we'll confirm with Anne, and then we'll get it scheduled. Okay. You guys are so lucky. I never go anywhere.
You're going somewhere in July, you said.
I am going somewhere. Yeah, it's not around a meeting though. Made sure of that.
Is that the promotion?
That's the promotion. Yeah, and I am going to the conference. Yeah, nothing like going to Louisiana in July.
Oh. I mean, I would say I've more or less done that.
I know.
The little thermostat on the car just stopped.
Yeah, it's pretty miserable.
It
Okay. Your daughter doesn't become a chief petty officer very often. So her brother's coming, which is great. So he's a chief master sergeant in the Air Force. Very proud of my kids, if you can't tell. Okay, so I guess I need a motion to adjourn. Darren, you want to make a
move to
motion?
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for all those who stuck it with us.
Yes.